Hello. It's Wednesday and it's time for Pop and Politics. We are talking about the latest in hot topics, news, and entertainment. I'm KJ, and let me introduce you to my co-host. We have Shelly E.
Hi, everybody.
Yes, we have Yana.
Hello.
We have T.
Hi.
And it's the last Wednesday of the month. So, as usual, we are joined by Tyrone Keys of Money Changes Everything. How are you tonight, Tyrone?
I'm doing well. How you guys doing?
Doing great. Doing great. Loving this weather here in Maryland. We had a beautiful 70-degree plus day.
It felt like 80.
Yeah.
In the
Yes,
car, right?
indeed. All right. So, again, join the conversation by leaving a comment on our Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. And don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Check us out on our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com for up-to-date information. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right, everybody, let's set it off. Okay, so tonight we are starting right in the beginning with you, Tyrone. I want to see what you have for us today as far as what's going on with different finance and economic happenings.
Well, yeah. The one major thing that's going on in the world today is a real wake-up call. What happened recently in Canada with their Emergencies Act? It had a lot of financial ramifications, and I want you to notice that you didn't hear any of the Western governments condemning what they did. Okay, so what do they always say? They say silence is consent, right?
Mm-hmm.
So let's run with that. So with this Emergencies Act, they said if you donated any money at all or supported those truckers in that convoy in any way, they were going to suspend your bank account, suspend your credit accounts, seize your property in the form of the trucks that these gentlemen and ladies were up there protesting in, and also cancel their insurance. There's also a move now that they've confiscated the property, the trucks, and they're going to try to sell them and put the money into the coffers of Canada. Okay. This is private property that has been seized. So, because we haven't heard any condemnation from the Biden administration or Boris over in the UK or, Macron in France, we can rightfully and I think smartly assume that they're okay with this. So, what should that tell you? It's more proof that the Western governments have decided that they're good with enacting tyranny and control through your wallet. All right. So people really have to become very aware of where they're putting their money. Okay. I've never been a huge fan of the banks in terms of growing your money. That's really not their purpose. The purpose of a bank, if you want to make money, you can either invest in it or take a loan from them. But as a saver, you're losing money. You're becoming poorer because of inflation. So this is what we're seeing with the governments of the world today. People need to be very aware, and they need to watch platforms like this, Metro Conservative Media, also the Money Changes Everything channel, if they want to stay on top of what's going on with their money.
All right. And we've talked about what is going on in Canada recently. This is the truckers who have been protesting the mandates. And because of that, Trudeau, who is a leader in Canada, has enacted this emergency situation where they've seized bank accounts of the protesters and anyone that interacts with them. So my question is, so what could someone do about that, though, as citizens? Is there any repercussion, anything that we can do or response that we can make towards that, or where would we how would we stop that from happening? I know you mentioned something about banks are not a good place to put your money.
Yeah. One of the way, and I've done a lot of thinking about this, and there's actually a lot of people uh, who are from Jim Rickards, who is a world-renowned investor. A lot of people are thinking about that question, and what we're kind of solidifying an answer around is to set up economic ecosystems of your own. So, for example,
Mhm.
I live in an area that is semi-rural. We have a lot of farms in this area, and I buy some of my family's food from these farms. So I've actually started to have conversations with these people about whether or not they would take silver, okay, in exchange for their goods. And one of these farms that I talked to are very open to that. Okay, now of course, that's not going to be a solution for everything that I need to per BG&E is not going to take silver. But we do what we can. So looking at little ecosystems you can build. And I want people to understand something. Canada is also attacking Bitcoin. They've been successful in taking Bitcoin out of wallets up there. So that to me is not a viable alternative. So where you can locally, try to see if you can set up this like ecosystem of bartering or uh, exchange in some other means of exchange.
Now you mentioned Bitcoin. I know Yana, you had a question regarding cryptocurrency. Can you talk about that?
Sure. Well, with crypto and just digital currency in general, like you were saying, it's really difficult to predict what is going to happen with that, and how can you secure your digital currency like that. So for example, if the government regulates the internet completely, or let's say there's no energy source, so we cannot even power our technology to log into our accounts, what can is crypto something that people should be considering, or do you think that that's we should not even be thinking about
I actually think crypto is, if you're a speculator and a trader, then crypto, getting into that world, a lot of people have made money in that way. But one thing about crypto, it has never gone through a financial crisis. Okay. It's not old enough to have experienced one. So we're seeing kind of how it reacts now. It's reacting kind of like a tech stock, and it's down precipitously. So uh, I personally do not own any crypto because I don't believe that if I can't necessarily put my hands on it, then the ownership, my true ownership of it is kind of nebulous. And then real quick, Yana, if you look at the Colonial Pipeline ransom that took place last year, the FBI was able to go back in and seize that Bitcoin, even though those perpetrators had it in what was called a cold wallet. So these governments, that crypto
it?
is not beyond their reach by any stretch of the imagination.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, that's interesting, guys. There were so whoever received, well, they were supposed to receive that money. You're saying they actually never got that ransom.
They got it, but then the FBI was able to recapture it. They took it
I see.
right out of their wallet and took it back.
Hmm.
All
Okay.
right, Shelly, what did you have? Did you have a question?
So I was just listening to Tyrone, and I was thinking the same thing about the bartering and exchange system. And short of a good mattress and a lock on your door, going back to this agrarian ways, if I don't know, it sounds like we need to return to this really, really localized system of exchange, barter and exchange, and for real, keeping money under your mattress.
I mean, I
Well,
like
that's
the silver idea. That sounds really cool. That's
yeah,
like going back to the basics. I'll have a satchel.
and the U.S. Mint produces legal tender silver coins. Okay, now of course their value is higher than the face value of the coin, but if you're talking to someone who's savvy, they may be open to exchange in that way. So now, with regard to cash, remember we're at a point where inflation is so pernicious that the dollar has actually been losing about a percentage point in value every month for the past 2 years. So, to the extent that you can convert money into an asset that appreciates and get it out of the dollar, the better off you will be.
All right. T, what was your question?
Yeah, I was really thinking about land and property and real estate. Now everyone's into real estate. They're buying up properties and flipping them. But what is a more lucrative and beneficial way to use land and to use real estate?
T, that's an excellent question, and it actually is something that I'm working on. Look, I grew up in West Baltimore in a row house. I've had enough of living right beside my next door neighbor. Okay, so
Right.
like I said, I'm on well and septic. I have land, and part of what I want is for this land to produce. Okay, at the end of the day, we all have to eat. Okay, so if you can produce on that land, trees that grow fruit, a garden. I really truly believe that we need to get back to those types of skills. Here in America, we've gotten way too far away from them. So the other thing I'm looking at, and a friend of mine just bought a ranch in the Southwest. I'm looking at a lot more land, and I'm actually looking at it to. I'm looking at land that has timber on it because I can sell that and regrow it. It's a renewable resource. And I can also lease it to farmers. So that's one way that I think you can have the asset that is real estate, and you can also have it producing income as well.
All
Yeah,
right.
no, that's good.
Yeah, that certainly is, especially when you talk about land and tending to land and growing your own food and vegetables. Um, that's something I think we need more of as far as teaching people how to do that. So I certainly agree with that. And I just want to get your insight on just bringing it back to the government seizing private assets. Where do you think this goes next? Just to get your opinion on that, as far as we saw this happening in Canada. We obviously believe, as you mentioned, that since this hasn't, no, the other westernized governments or leaders haven't said anything against it. So, do you believe this could actually happen here in the United States?
Well, in a way, it already has. If we look back at the mandates and how they arranged that so that if you didn't do it, you could lose your job. Okay. That was that was really a form of socialism in that the government was, in a way, seizing the means of production. So this is why I am like really big on financial independence and independence otherwise. Okay. I do believe that it could happen in the United States, but I think that one of the major roadblocks to that, quite frankly, is the Second Amendment. You see that in Australia when they gave up that right, it wasn't long after that they were subjugated by their government. So I would encourage folk to, start thinking about these issues. And the last thing I would say is I really would encourage people to develop a skill, a hard skill. Okay. Now, at one point I was an EMT. Now that knowledge will never leave my head. I know how to do that, even though I'm not certified. So if God forbid something happens to a family member, I can work in that capacity. My brothers are mechanically inclined. I would encourage people to go out and acquire a skill. I think that's going to be essential as we move further into the 21st century.
All right.
It's wonderful. I would love if you ever speak to young people about this. This is what teenagers should be hearing.
Yes, absolutely. I certainly agree, and that is why we have you on here every the last Wednesday of every month. This is Tyrone Keys with Money Changes Everything. He is a wealth of knowledge. Please check him out on YouTube, on Facebook, under Money Changes Everything. You will not be, you will surely be assisted with that. So, again, any last thoughts other than that, Tyrone, before we let you go?
That's it. I just want to thank you all for having me again, and I look forward to next month.
All right. All right. Have a good night.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so we are happy again. Like I mentioned, he has been so helpful to us, and that is key. I mean, when you think about it, not only developing a trade or some type of skill, but when you think about the way we're moving and just it seems chaotic nowadays, that skill can be life saving. It's not just as far as pushing yourself up in as far as your career, but I mean life saving, depending on what's
Literally.
going on this.
Yeah, we have to be self-sufficient.
Mhm.
That's the only way. People cannot be relying on other people or the government, especially. We can
Or
rely on our
your boss. You can't rely on your boss either.
Mhm.
That's
You have to
true.
create your own streams of income.
Absolutely. Not only that, but health. We have to be healthy. We have to be able to move and maneuver and do certain things on our own.
Mhm.
Otherwise, we can be left behind. So, yeah. So, again, we're moving right along to our next topic. Marilyn Mosby. So, Marilyn Mosby has been in the news. She continues to be in the news. So now it's basically what's love got to do with it. So, in new filings, Baltimore's indicted state's attorney, Marilyn Mosby, says she is an innocent spouse and adds new names, most notably that of City Council President Nick Mosby, to the list of those she blames. I want to give you guys some background before we really dig into this. So, Mosby alleges through her lawyers that her husband made multiple mistakes that led to the Internal Revenue Service placing a $45,200 lien on their Reservoir Hill house in February 2020 for unpaid taxes. She says she knew nothing about the lien because her husband was in charge of the couple's tax returns. She only glanced at it, at her salary figure before signing the forms, and had concealed withdrawals he had made from his 401k retirement plan over a period of 6 years. So, lacking knowledge of her husband's premature withdrawals in 2014 and 2015, subsequent tax problems with the IRS, Marilyn Mosby swore that she had no tax liabilities on a September 2020 mortgage application for a Florida condominium. This is the basis for the charges, or one of the charges against her. The next month, the existence of the tax lien was widely reported by the news media. So, why then did Mosby also fail to disclose the application for a second Florida vacation property in January 2021? Her chief defense attorney, Scott Bolden, gives her answer this way in the new filings. In November 2020, her husband, Nick Mosby, informed state's attorney Mosby as well as the public that the lien had been paid off, her lawyer says. So, in other words, Baltimore's top prosecutor says that her spouse lied to her. She took his word for it. So, her chief, in other words, yes, she said she lied to her. And so, even so, how could she have not known about the lien when the IRS had sent notices? So, this is just some background information. This is all from the Baltimore Brew. So, you can definitely check it out on there. So, again, as a result, she had to rely on her husband's records and on accountant Sharif Small, who prepared the couple's September returns in 2019. So, starting off with you, Shelly. What are your thoughts on Marilyn Mosby's response through her attorney this week?
Okay, so I am going to tell you that, first of all, I think it's incredibly sad that their marriage is being displayed like this to the public. I know that they are high-profile public officials, but I still think they are entitled to some privacy. I think this is sad, notwithstanding the lawsuit. I think that as spouses have, what do you call it? I don't know, spousal immunity, something like that. I forget the terminology. So a spouse does not have to testify against his or her spouse. All of that is in the hopes of keeping the marriage intact. I've read the indictment last night. and the defense's response. I read their response last night. I looked at the exhibits. She did say she did not know, and Nick Mosby signed affidavits saying that he was in charge of the finances and paying the taxes. So he signed affidavits, which are evidence to the case.
All right, Yana, I want to go to you. What are your thoughts on her response? Is she throwing her husband under the bus?
Well, yeah, I mean, leftist women, they are empowered and courageous until they get in trouble, or they're independent, and then when they get in trouble, it's the man's fault. So, what if it was a man who was implicated in some financial misdealings, and he would just say, "Oh, that's my wife," and I had no idea? Like, that would sound ridiculous. But because it's coming from a woman, again, she's using like a gender card, it seems like, at this time. So she's trying all these different ways to not take responsibility. And then she has a important position that people trust her with to make decisions, and with she's a prosecutor, and she doesn't even know what's going on in her family finances. So it already shows that how can people trust her in general. And in terms of just this whole leftist feminism, they're very contradicting people, it seems like. On one hand, they want to say that they're completely capable as men and should be trusted just as we would trust a man. And then when something goes wrong, it's like, well, I'm going to blame the man. So that's what I see from that.
All right, T, what are your thoughts on this? Now she's saying that she didn't know because her husband lied to her. What are your thoughts?
I think that I knew that it was going to come to this in the first place because either she's throwing him under the bus or he's being used as a sacrifice or a scapegoat. And it could be both or a mixture of both. But I saw this in the beginning. I knew it would come down to a decision that they made in their marriage. Either she didn't listen to him, or I didn't know how it was going to come out, but I knew it was going to be something like this, where she didn't listen to his decisions, but I guess he's being a scapegoat or being sacrificed right now. But I wonder what would come of it, as far as, will he be, will charges come against him now? Like, what will come of it now? But yeah, I knew this would happen.
That's a good question. I mean, we have a situation here where you have two people who lead in the city, and it looks like or sounds like they don't know how to handle their own personal business. Not only that, but my question to you all is, what is the situation now going forward? Let's say she does, beat these charges. Does she come across as someone capable of running the city, of being the top prosecutor for Baltimore City based off of this? It sounds like a bunch of mess to me.
Well, I would agree. It sounds like a mess. Well, I think it is a mess, number one. But I do want to clarify something. As much as I did not vote for Marilyn Mosby, will not vote for her, and I would discourage anybody from doing so based on her record of being a prosecutor. Having a tax lien is not illegal. People get tax liens all the time, and they pay them back to the IRS for underpaying their taxes or for whatever. That is not illegal. That is a charge, or that is a claim that's being used as a defense for the charges. So let's get that straight. She is not being charged with having a tax lien, which is not illegal. Any American can have a tax lien. So that's number one. Number two, going forward, I have said before that I thought that these charges were kind of, I think I used the word petty. Although I think she did what they are charging her, I think they were petty charges to charge her. I think she should have been charged way back when for the civil rights at the Freddie Gray, the officers that she did not convict. So I think that there were greater charges that she could have been brought up on earlier. Going forward, I hope she's not reelected, because she's not good for Baltimore just on the merits. Again, on her watch, 7 years, we've had 300 plus murders. Actual lives have been snuffed out, and she still is holding to this restoration, historical restoration, whatever policy that she has, not prosecuting, not collecting criminals and violent criminals and keeping them in jail. So she is very deadly to Baltimore. I think literally deadly to Baltimore.
Well, it's non-violent crimes.
Now, so I see what you're saying. However, the way that she's handled her response in this case shows a lot to her character and basically to her competence.
She doesn't want to take responsibility, right?
Right. She doesn't take responsibility. And secondly, I'm sure you guys have, I've dealt with attorneys. I literally deal with attorneys all day long. They dot their I's and cross their T's on everything, not just about their work. But when you have to deal with an attorney just on regular, everyday stuff, they're questioning everything. They're the worst people to deal with. Any type of business dealing, you have to deal with them. It's, oh, wait a minute. What did you do this? Let me read. They read the fine print on everything. At least I
agree with you. I think they're like that. But I think they're like that in business and professional. But what I take a back stand myself. I put myself in the back burner when I take the leap to put myself in someone else's marriage. I can't do that. I just can't do that in good conscience.
Well, like you said, there are public couples, and they do both work for the city. So it is kind of our business, what's going on with their and it's
not their marriage, not their marriage.
I can't do that in good conscience. The money when she asked for what was it, $50,000 or more dollars because she claimed financial hardship when she actually got a raise on her salary. So things like that. It just shows that she cares about her own how to enrich herself. That's what people see. And
she may feel that way, Yana, but I'm saying in their marriage, but they are spouses. They have the right legally to cover each other in a trial. They have that right. That is not illegal.
I'm not against their rights. It's our rights to also be aware what's going to and make our own decisions and whether believer or not believer.
You can, but that doesn't mean that I know any more than anyone else knows how she is as a wife, being a married woman in her personal life. I just can't in good conscience make that leap. Again, I didn't vote for her.
You are conflating.
No,
first of all, we have not mentioned, no one actually, even before today's show, before she came out with this response on this show, we have never mentioned anything about her personal life.
I'm saying today. I'm talking about today.
I know, but I'm just want to say. So she brought in when she replied and said her husband talking about their personal life as far as
the thing is,
she did, but he also said with David.
Now this once she brings him in as the reason that these mistakes, whatever was made. Now this opens up.
I agree. I just say I'm not going to take that leap. I'm not going to take that leap and put myself in their marriage. She did. That's on the public record.
She put
that is the public record. But let's also say the other side. He also signed an affidavit saying that yes, he did do this.
Shelly, you said that
he's being used as a scapegoat right now.
This is the private matter. Let me just finish that. Their private matter. She, like KJ said, she brought it up. So she brought up something that's private into the public instead of taking responsibility that she messed up in her private life. And as a responsible person, if this would have happened to a man, he would have taken that responsibility that his wife went behind his back and did something because he has to.
I don't know that every man would have done that. They are married. No, what I'm saying is that he did sign an affidavit saying that yes, I did that. She said this is what happened. Again, the charges that are laid out. It seems like the evidence is there that she did it. But that does not negate their spousal protection for each other. So I'm not going to take that leap because I don't agree or like her policies. I'm not going to take the leap and just say that everything she does or that he does is somehow, they're doing everything nefariously. I'm not going to take that leap.
Well, Shelly, you were the one just saying before.
You take that leap. You can look at what we do is you take into consideration all things put in front of you, and you look at it. And now we already saw what they were doing publicly as leaders.
Yeah.
We already saw it. Now we even know. Okay, so now they're doing stuff in their private life, which we didn't need to know, but now we have to know because they have combined the private and the public. So now
we're private and public. What did they combine? What did they combine? I'm trying to understand what you're saying. You said what did they? I didn't hear what you said.
She revealed that it was her husband that did something behind her back.
Right, and the whole
say that again.
Go ahead.
Well, I was saying that she revealed to everybody that it's her husband that did something without her knowing.
And he signed an affidavit saying he did so.
Right.
Okay, so that is a private
matter.
No, I get that. That's on the public record. I read it last night. I read it. I agree with that. We can talk about it. What the leap that I'm not about to make is the saying that she's making him a scapegoat when he signed an affidavit as well. I'm not going that far.
Still be a sacrifice. You know what a sacrifice is? He's agreeing to be the sacrifice.
Maybe he is, but maybe he is. I'm not saying maybe he is. What I'm saying is that's their marriage to do that. And they have the legal right to protect and cover each other. They have that legal right.
They don't make it right. No one's saying they don't. It doesn't make it okay.
What part is not okay? Having a tax lien is not illegal.
The point of the whole thing was not that she had so much that she had the tax lien, but that she provided, she lied on documentation.
That part I agree with. I said that. I agree with the charges. I think she did what they said in the charges. I'm talking about those. We were talking about the spousal part that Donna said something about, every man wouldn't do that, but he signed an affidavit saying that he did it. Her husband.
Well, because he took responsibility. He actually, came out, I guess, and said, yeah.
What I'm saying is that I don't know that they are lying or cover. I do know they have the right to cover each other.
Can't hear the both of y'all.
He took the responsibility to at least take the blame for something. And all she's doing is blaming everybody else.
I think she was blaming. She is taking the classic blame. It's not my fault. It's racism. Whatever
Right.
They're coming after her. I agree with all of that. What I'm saying is, in my mind, I'm at least trying to make a separation between getting into their marital life. Yes, she brought it into the defense, and he signed the affidavit. That's all I'm saying. I don't know what their marriage is, or that they are, scapegoating each other. Whatever. I don't know. They have the right to cover and protect each other as husband and wife.
We're not disagreeing with that.
She sat there and said it. We know that he's lying or he didn't tell. If you want to believe him, like you say you do, then
I'm not saying that she didn't say that, KJ. He signed she said that she didn't know. He signed an affidavit saying, no, she didn't. I did handle the finances. Okay. That's it. That's all he said. That's what they said.
Right.
That's what they said.
Okay. I mean, that's exactly what I was saying. She's not acting like a woman in charge, the way she presents herself to the public. And obviously the public is not going to trust her.
Well, maybe she's not a woman in charge.
I hope they don't.
Maybe she's not in charge. Maybe she's not in charge in her marriage. So what does that have to do with her being in her position, her being in charge for her own?
It's not about her being in charge. I'm not saying
that's what I'm saying. Yeah,
being in charge. She has to take responsibility because whatever happens in her marriage, even if she did not know, let's say, it doesn't matter that she didn't know. This is her marriage, and she made a mistake by not knowing, because this is a lot of money. This is important.
How can you make a mistake by not knowing? If you don't know, you don't know. Maybe I'm saying I don't believe her. I don't believe that she didn't know. I'm saying that I believe that she's using him as a scapegoat. I'm not saying that she doesn't know.
Not be involved in anything. Don't be in one of the highest positions.
You don't have to be a housewife to not be involved in certain things. It's not either or.
Say, I'm oblivious to what my husband is doing. Because
there are times.
I don't believe that.
I'm with you. I'm with you on that one. No, I don't think it's that black and white. I don't.
Well, we'll see, because it'll play out in court. We have some comments here from Patty. The tax lien is not illegal, but lying about it for loans is illegal. Thank you. Don't forget.
Wait a minute, Patty. She's only lying. She's only lying if she knew. I'm just saying what she said. She said she didn't know, and he signed an affidavit backing her up.
Don't forget, she also lied about the property being her second home, not a rental, and she had already hired a company to manage it. So the question here is, one, whether she lied. Now, she's saying she didn't. She's saying she didn't know. So my contention is, okay, you didn't know, but still you're negligent. And because you should have known. You should have known. So, anytime you file taxes, anytime you're doing something jointly with anybody, really, whether it's your husband, whether it's a family member, you go into a business with a family member, anytime you're doing something jointly with someone, you should know. So she's saying she didn't know because he didn't tell her. Did she ask him? Did he just blatantly lie about it? Those are things that we would not, we would probably will come out in court. But whether it just goes to show that either she's oblivious to what's going on, or two, that she is lying, and both don't bode well for her being a state's attorney. That's all my point is. All right. Moving along, we have any more? Okay, so we'll move on from there. Again, please continue to comment. We will follow this story throughout the trial. Join the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. Also, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. Check us out on our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com for up-to-date information. We are a necessary voice in news and entertainment. All right. So we are moving along to our next topic, which is the Kim Potter trial. So Kim Potter, who killed Daunte Wright, was sentenced to 24 months fine on manslaughter convictions. Was the verdict fair and just? And how should we as the public react? So I want to start with you, Shelly. What are your thoughts?
So I think the verdict was just based on the law. I don't know if it will ever be fair to the loss of the family and his friends. I don't think there will ever be any compensation or recompense for their grief.
All right. Yana, what are your thoughts? Was the verdict fair and just?
No, I mean, I feel really terrible about this verdict. It was definitely wrong. I've looked recently that there was a person who killed 4 people because of a car accident, and he got 110 years in prison for that. And that's for 4 people, but if you break it down, that's like 27 years per person. So people get higher sentences for manslaughter during car accidents. And in her case, she's a police officer. She's supposed to be she's trained. She's been over 20 years. She's been in police force, and so it really doesn't make sense to me.
All right. What are your thoughts, T, on the verdict of Kim Potter in manslaughter case against Daunte Wright? Was it just and fair?
No, I don't think it was either just nor fair, because like all of you have said, really, the sentence did not match her killing a man that she didn't know. He would go with the she didn't know thing, right? Killing a man, and then it wasn't fair because a life is lost for nothing, or for no reason at all. Another life is lost. And I don't really want to get into it. Doesn't even matter about the race right now. It just matters about the fact that it's wrong.
Well, that's what I wanted to ask you guys. That was my next question. Do you believe race played a role in the light sentencing? This is anybody can answer.
I don't.
We can't tell what was going through
I
her
don't.
mind. So no, but it's sad that we already have so much bad press, the cops, that have been brutal, and that's, always in the news. And then we just added another case that really didn't have to happen. And she made a terrible mistake that really, I don't see an excuse. And she might get out in less than 2 years from prison.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, well, looking here at the case, I have here Judge Chu, that's who presided. Decision in the case was within the discretion provided by the law. So judges may depart from a presumed sentence if the judge states on record the reasons for that departure, and those reasons are well explained. This was from Azari Sumi, who is a professor in criminal law, talked
Mm-hmm.
about it. So what does this case mean? Do you guys think this case will have a meaning or will have an effect on cases going forward that happen like this?
Well, as I was mentioning about how people have gotten much higher sentences for mistakes that they have done. And that to me does not seem fair at all. Why one person gets pretty much life sentence for a mistake and another person almost nothing. So does that mean, is it because she's a police officer?
Now, that's where I can see that the case may be different because she was a police officer. Maybe not as much as race, but the fact that she was a police officer, I can see her getting a lesser sentence because of that.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, you look at doctors. So the number of doctors prosecuted for manslaughter or any type of consequence due to malpractice or anything like that is low also. And it kind of, to me, it seems along the same lines as like what happened here. If you have a surgeon doing a surgery, and they make a mistake,
Well, she wasn't on the job though. It's not the same because she wasn't on her job. She was at home.
She was on the job. No, she was working. She was chasing him down.
Oh, you know what? Okay,
this was on the job.
You got she confused the taser for a gun, right? That's the right. She thought she was using the taser, and she used the gun instead. Like point blank.
That was negligent, right?
So
it's so many of these cases. I get them confused.
To Yana's point, Yana said something about other cases have gotten more time for the car accident or killing people with the car, but each case is supposed to stand on its own weight, the own evidence, the own aggravating factors that come into that case or whatever exculpatory evidence. So to say that is just carte blanche, that it's not going to happen that way. Number one, there's also state law. She may be charged federally. I don't know. But to say that just because somebody had an accident and got 27 years and she got 2 years or less, that's automatic unfairness. I think the unfairness again goes to the family side, the grief side, but not necessarily the law. The law was already in place and she was in the course of duty. What I don't understand, one of the things that angers me, I don't know if anger might not be the right word, that upsets me, I guess, to some degree, is that when I hear conservatives, at least, we are so black and white that there's no one can make a mistake. Granted, I understand the gravity that a life has been taken, but it was a mistake. There's no proof that she did this with intent, with malicious intent, with any kind of purpose to kill, or I would say murder. She didn't murder this man. It was manslaughter. It was a killing, tragic as it may be. And sometimes I get a little, I don't know, leery when I hear conservatives are not able to make some of those distinctions.
That's a good point. This certainly was an atypical case. I mean, you don't have many instances where officers mistake their gun for the taser.
Right.
So, this was something that is, something that rarely happens. So for an atypical case, you would have atypical sentencing sometimes.
This is what kind of justifies when they say to defend defund the police. This justifies them doing that. But I just think, I've always said no, but I always thought that it's just better training. They just need better training all across the board.
I mean, she's been in the police force, as far as I know, for over 20 years. So I don't know if it's...
Yeah, there shouldn't be a reason that she...
So I don't know what was going on there. She is a disgrace to all the police officers after this. Very disappointing case.
It is disappointing. But to KJ's point about the hospitals, every year for a number of years, for decades, there have been more than 150,000, 200,000 plus people who have died from medical care. Medical mistakes is what they call them.
And I think they should be prosecuted much more.
Medical mistakes. So, I mean, to say that, I don't know if she's a disgrace. Maybe she is. That's for the police force to determine. But it's sad all the way around. She's going to serve her time. I don't know, 2 years or less. Again, that will never be enough. Nothing will satisfy the loss to that family.
Yeah, that's true.
Especially this way, the way it happened, a mistake by a cop.
Right. Yeah. Now, I mean, I wouldn't still say this wouldn't be something where you could hang your hat on the whole defund the police narrative. Again, like any job, you have situations like this where people make mistakes. At least in this, we do know it was a mistake because we have the video and you can honestly see that she definitely made a mistake. And you have jobs like this that are high anxiety professions. You know, look at pilots, again, doctors, people in the medical field, all high anxiety, life or death professions, and mistakes happen, unfortunately. So thank God not as many mistakes. So things like this we don't hear of often. So that is something to kind of be, I guess, somewhat take solace in. I want to go to some of the comments here. So I have Stephen, in the heat of the moment, she mistook a 1 pound taser for a 5 pound gun. What is the point of all the training that cops do if after 20 years you can't tell them apart? Yeah, that's true. But easier said than done. I know personally, I have never been in a situation where at the heat of the moment, I'm reaching for a gun, taser, fingernail file, whatever. I've never been in a situation like that. So I don't know. But to his point, they have been they get immense training. Maybe the training is not enough. Maybe this is a call to add more money to the police department for extensive training. Or maybe they need to pay these people more so you can get highly qualified people. I've been saying that for years. They need to have people, pay these police officers more, and you get a better qualified person, perhaps. And I say this, you have a lot of times where you hear these police officers are working overtime to make more money, and things like that, stealing on the job, which I don't condone. But when you look at the salaries of these police officers, they're making next to nothing. So I don't know. I'll move on. I have here Cassandra. Drunk driving gets more time. She was supposed to be a trained professional. Daunte did not sign a disclaimer when he signed his lease. Okay. I don't know what you mean by his lease. But yeah. Yeah, these are all adequate comments. So again, continue the comments, continue the conversation by leaving a comment on Facebook, YouTube, or Twitter. We will check the comments periodically throughout the show. Don't just comment, subscribe. Subscribe to our social media so you always know when we post new content. All right, so we have our Black History moment. I believe this is the last week, I think, in February for us. Is next Wednesday in February?
No, it's the last Wednesday.
Oh, right. So you want to highlight a moment in Black history? Can you talk to us about it, T?
Yeah, so we're talking about not a person here. We're talking about actual city of Baltimore. During the Great Migration, the population of, people that came, the freed slaves that came to Baltimore, we migrated here and we had these nice jobs. And between 1910 in 1970, there was 85,000 to 420,000 Black Americans that moved to Baltimore City. We had, and most of them were early on, they were in-state transplants, but most of them came from the South as well. We had organizations, family, everyone had their nice jobs. People worked at the Bethlehem Fairfield shipyard where they built ships and everything. And which is now the harbor. We're at the harbor now. Lewis Bottling Company. There were businessmen, investors, many rags to riches, so to speak, stories coming from slavery here. Black people were thriving in Baltimore. We had the harbor, so we had importing and exporting businesses, and both male and females worked down there. So Baltimore hasn't always been the city that we know it as today. We actually had a lot of thriving Blacks here during that time. And the Brotherhood of Liberty, which was one of the organizations, Black organizations, basically paved the way for NAACP and other Black organizations after them. And they were formed here, Brotherhood of Liberty. So Baltimore City we've been there, they go right there, those fine gentlemen. We've had a lot of good things for Black people that happen in Baltimore, and we still do. We just got to keep that reminder in this Black History Month of Baltimore City that we didn't just come from nothing. We came here to do a lot, and we did it, and we're still doing it, and we're thriving.
Absolutely. I totally agree. And thank you so much for providing that information, that reminder for us of our Black history right here in Baltimore City. So
I love those outfits, the clothes they were wearing back then.
Yes.
Yes.
And we looked like we were something and somebody.
Absolutely. And so that's what I think. It's like when you dress the part, you do it. Sometimes that helps to motivate you to act a certain way. Right.
Mm-hmm.
All right. We have a comment here from Patty. We had Armco Steel at Edison Highway and Biddle Street. Great paying jobs. GM in Dundalk as well. General Electric downtown. So many good paying jobs for our city residents with easy access to get to.
Yep.
Yeah.
And back then we wanted to work. We wanted to do better. We had community, we had shame, we had all these things in our community that made us better, not just within ourselves, but within our own communities and the people around us. Just the times were better then.
Right. And one other thing we had was traditional marriage. So that segues us right into our next topic, because this is not a traditional marriage and we're going to talk about it. All right. So we're talking about Sana and Adnan Akan. Got married in their 20s and quickly fell into a rut. They started living apart in October and will do so for a maximum of 3 years. So far, it's done wonders for their relationship. They have separate New York City apartments. Sana goes on to say, we lived together for 6.5 years before deciding to make our own rules and do what works best for us and our love story. So she wrote this in the video posted on January 29th, which has amassed over 1 million views at the time of the writing. So I want to talk about this with you ladies. I want to start with you, Shelly. Is this marriage in name only, or is this reimagining of a marriage? What are your thoughts?
I do think it is reimagining marriage. I think they're legally married, so it's not just in name only, but I'm not totally against it either.
All right. What about you, Yana? What do you think about this marriage? Is this traditional? Is this
well, it's definitely reimagining marriage. I don't think this is going to work for them long term. That's just my opinion. I think she's trying to have her cake and eat it too. So she rebelled against her culture, and now she's trying to have to live both, in both worlds.
All right. Want to ask you, T, is this a reimagining of marriage, or is this marriage in name only?
It's both. But it was a traditional marriage. It started off as a traditional marriage, but they changed it and made it into modern. And this is, I mean, this they don't seem like like Yana said, they're from somewhere else, or maybe their parents are from another country. But this is something that I don't really like to see when with other countries or other cultures. When they come here to America, they lose all of their traditions, they lose all of their culture. Well, sometimes they become too Americanized, and I don't like that. I like to see them keep their culture as well, and within their own culture.
Right. It's not
Yeah,
so
because we
Americanized. It's
when you
she's
think
in New
about it
York.
though, I'm sorry.
No, I was gonna say she got into this New York lifestyle, this very leftist lifestyle. I went through her Instagram, so
Mm-hmm.
I know what she's about. And yeah, she writes in her article that she was pressured into marriage by family, that they expected them to get married right after college. And in the whole article, she barely mentions what he thought about it. And it seems like she said that, um, for example, that she was coming home and she didn't want to even talk to him. Like she was so tired and she was frustrated. And she said we were basically living for each other. Well, that's when she was talking about that she was trying to make it work. And she said we were basically living for each other versus for ourselves. But isn't that marriage when you live for each other?
Well, I want to ask you guys something. I want to go back to something T said about she didn't like that they came here and got Americanized or Westernized. But you find a lot when immigrants come. Most times, one person comes, whether it's the father or the mother, and they go years. They can go years without seeing one another. Especially in the Caribbean culture, a lot of them come over here to make money, and they send it over to their home country.
Not by
They'll
choice.
have husband there. They'll have kids. Maybe they'll bring the kids over a little later, or they may have, or maybe they don't have kids. And they making money, sending it back home, and then the husband or whoever the spouse comes over. So do see that a lot with immigrant families. What are you guys' thoughts on that?
They don't do that
That's
by
true.
choice. KJ, they don't do that by choice. When one spouse has to come here and not see the other spouse for years and years, that's tragic. That is tragic, especially if they have children. That's not what they want. So in her case, that's what she wants, and she wants to have a single woman lifestyle, and like basically she just wants to have a boyfriend. So it seems like to me that she doesn't care that her husband, goes home by himself, or he has to, take care of himself. He
I
doesn't
don't even know
have.
how does it work.
But
How
what
did
do you
you,
know?
how did you, I read that same article, and granted, we can all have different opinions, but how did you get all of that out of that, Yana? Because from the article, they both live wherever they live separately, and they come together. I didn't see that she's neglecting him or he's neglecting her.
The article is from her perspective. So
from her perspective, but even she didn't say anything like, I'm just trying to understand how you got all of that, because it sounded like
imagining that you were together, right? You love each other, and then all of a sudden now this person is somewhere else, so you don't know what they're doing. If they having a good day, are they having a bad day? Do they?
That's why they have phone calls. That's why they connect with each other during the week. They see each other during the week.
Having a friend. That's not having a.
They see each other during the week.
That's just like having
a boyfriend.
Boyfriend.
It's okay to be boyfriend and girlfriend when you're married. It is very much okay to be boyfriend and girlfriend when you're married.
That's a different dynamic, though. It's not.
I don't know. I mean, this is temporary. They are doing it. I mean, this is, like you said, it's from her perspective. Apparently, it's working for them. It sounds like, I don't know all the details, of course, but it sounds like from what she wrote, it's working for them. It's getting them reacquainted, refreshed in their marriage. It's a time limit.
From her perspective.
Well, let's just assume that it's a mutual. I'm believing that it's a mutual.
I think it's mutual. No, I don't think it's mutual.
Well, otherwise he would ask for divorce. I don't. Whether
he's trying to make her happy, however he can. accommodating everything that
being
this woman
neglected.
is asking of him, and she is not worried that he might be seeing someone else.
Well, that's the thing. To me, it's just it's not a marriage. And again, it's just my opinion. To me, it's not a marriage. Now, I understand the concept of wanting your own space, especially when you're married for a long period of time. They haven't even been married long to me, but whatever. So, but you would want to do it within the confines of your own home. And again, I don't know what their religious affiliation is, but as far as I know, the Bible says when two become one. So you get married, you're in the same home, you're in the same household. You don't go split into two separate houses for 3 years. Then
do you think they'll get back together after whatever time, and they're just gonna magically work?
They're still seeing each other, but let's take it outside of the
context. She wants to move back in together at some point, but do you think that's
right? I'm saying, and they're still seeing each other right now. But even outside of just this couple, like I don't know who mentioned it, but KJ said sometimes people are separated for other reasons. Maybe it's not by choice, but the outcomes and the consequences therein could still be the same. Military families are separated, maybe not by choice, but they still have to work through the separation, the reacquainting, the keeping in touch, things like that. They still have to maintain the households. I will say this about this living apart together. I think it's called living apart together. One thing I did notice is that you have to have money to do this, to have two households. So yeah. The money part is a real important part of it.
Well, that's what that's a good point you made, Shelly, because a lot of times we find, or at least I find, that money kind of actually can make things a little worse, because it gives you options that you would not have, and because
having money gives you options, period. So it can be good or bad.
It's not always a good thing when it comes to familial situations. I think, for instance, just with this, we have more money now, so now people have more TVs in their house. They have larger houses, so families aren't connected as much as they would be. And so, same thing with husband and wife. They have, of course, like you mentioned, they have this money, so they can have two separate households. But is that always the best thing for a couple? I don't.
For a marriage.
I don't know, right, for a marriage. I don't know if I would.
I agree with you. I'm just saying I'm not against it in the sense that I know people who have separated because they have marital problems. They separate for a time being and they work on it while they're separated, and then they come back together. So that's why I'm saying I'm not totally against this, particularly if the goal and they are both working to reunite the marriage.
I've known someone that actually they were having problems in their marriage and they decided to move away from each other or move out or whatever. But that actually helped them in that case. They lived away or apart for many years. They weren't separate. They were still married. They had children. They lived like a separate house or a separate marriage, but it brought them together more or better.
Together eventually?
What?
Did they get back together eventually?
They got back together eventually, and then they divorced.
And let's be real. According to the statistics, there are many people who are married, live in the same house, and are basically separated as well. So just because you don't see it as obvious as this couple and this growing trend, it seems to be, it doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So at least from what on appearance, it sounds like these couples are working towards reuniting their marriage in a good way.
Yeah, but do you guys think this is going to work?
No.
No.
I don't know. I mean, I think it can. I don't know if it will. I think I'm not averse to it. I think it can. I think it has some merit to it.
She will keep sending him away. Whenever she gets frustrated with him, she will send him away.
He's in no place. He can just go away. He just go away.
Well, sure, of course, but she drove him away. She said she was.
Oh my God!
And then he said, "Okay, well, how about we just go back to dating?" He's completely like this meek guy who just does everything.
He might be. He might be, but
Yeah, absolutely.
she
He
married
might
him.
not be, T. Don't encourage Yana
Or
because
he
he
might
might
not
not
be.
be.
She married him. It doesn't matter what
Well,
he is. She married him.
in my experience on situations like this, if it is what Yana is saying, what happens is these men eventually find someone else.
Yeah.
And then the woman is like, oh, well, no, I just wanted this. And now but the men move on. And they move on and find somebody that want to live with in the same household with them.
Someone
and,
who is more
and these
emotionally
women, you have them
available to him.
single.
From what I'm gathering is that she was not an emotionally available spouse. And so she wants to have her social life. That is her most important thing. She runs a social club that people pay for in order to like go on events and stuff together. And that is her most important thing. So her family, her husband are not that important.
She shouldn't be married then.
Well, let's keep in mind that their marriage was arranged. Okay, let's keep that in
wasn't
mind.
arranged. They were dating. They dated
Oh, this
for over
okay.
a year.
Okay, so I thought somebody said they were arranged marriage.
No, but they were pushed into, signing the papers and making it legal.
And I want to add that having been married 23 years now, I think we have in our culture, in American culture, we have this idea that when you have two people who come together, they're married. I got it, KJ. You have two become one, but we have this, I think, this unrealistic expectation that everything and everybody just knows what to do, and everything is just going to fall into place. And I think that puts so much pressure on people, particularly young marriages, young couples. No, it doesn't work that way. It really isn't, Snow White or whatever being kissed by the prince like that.
That's what I think. It's a good idea for people who want to get married to have some counseling or talk to other people who have been married.
You can do all of that, and I encourage that. But until you actually do it, when you first get married, it is not a bed of roses like the honeymoon. Like most people,
it doesn't have to be. It's a responsibility. So yeah, you take.
It is a responsibility, but what I'm saying is that I think our society puts so much pressure and has these high expectations.
Getting it correct, getting it right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they just know what to do, and it doesn't always happen like that. It doesn't happen like that. I don't think at all.
So to that point, you do have to make your marriage yours. Like you have to. It's only you two in that marriage. So you have to do what you come together to do.
That's true.
But it's still coming together.
But again, in a sense, and what you were saying, Shelly, this is supposed to be for eternity. This is supposed to be when you spend most of your life. If you get married, in your 20s, this is the majority of your life. You because you marry, most people marry for just forever. So it is not easy. I mean, I've been married for over 16 years. It's not easy. Now, I will say the first couple of years were heaven. It was beautiful. It was, getting to know each other, having a good time. But then it gets tough. You can go when you think of a lifetime, you may have years where things are tough. I mean,
exactly. I agree.
Right? And so you manage it, and it's a responsibility, it's a commitment, and I think people don't weigh that enough. It is
for me, it was the opposite. My first few years, so for me, it was like I call it like a whirlwind, and for me, because I didn't know what I was supposed to do, what this role was. I had my church, the Bible, the society, things like that, and I felt like this. So for the first few years, they were not as blissful as what we make it out to be. What our image of marriage is. For me, they weren't. That didn't come about until I was maturing and learning and older, but it didn't happen like that the first few years. No, not for me, it wasn't.
All right, let's see the comments. So I have here, let's see here. I have Chad, be careful talking about that, KJ. You're stepping on toes for other underlying issues. I don't know what I was talking about. But okay. Let's see here. I have Cassandra, bingo, separation first with hopes of reconciliation and not straight to divorce. All right. Patty, you all will laugh about this, but we said back in 1979 when we got married, the only way out would be a pine box We both believe the vows were a one-time thing, and it was live that brought us, life that brought us together, and we needed to work past any things that tried to divide us. That's something that's definitely missing in our day and age. I don't think people get married and think this is it. I think people get married and say this might be it, but if
It's
it's
an
not,
option.
Right.
I think that's changed. That's definitely changed in our generation.
Yeah, we have
We have more. We have options now.
technology. Yes,
Yeah.
instant gratification.
Yeah. Patty says we have our own interests aside from each other, but we also share interests as well. We're both strong people and sometimes a bit bullheaded.
Of course.
All right. So yeah, thank you so much, guys, for commenting. We certainly enjoy it. You are our fifth co-host, so definitely your comments we move right along with the show, and we include them in every topic. So thank you so much for joining the conversation. All right. Well, if you guys don't have anything else on this topic, we were moving toward the end of the show. So, again, thank you so much for watching and joining the conversation. You can continue the conversation by checking us out on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram, and subscribe. That way, you get up to the minute content when we post, and we appreciate the support. We are an independent media company, and each time you subscribe, it helps make our voice that much stronger. So, share this video on your social media, Facebook. If you're watching on YouTube, like, comment, and share this on your other social media platforms. Check us out on our website at www.metroconservativemedia.com. We look forward to seeing you next week. Until then, count your blessings and live a life of purpose. Good night.